Johnny Talk Sports with my Week 7 college football predictions. Last week was an okay week, 6-4 overall. I'll try to recover, try to get 7 or 8 this week. 10 more great games, including 2 bonus games. I got a bonus game right last week, so that makes me 5-1 on the year in bonus picks. I just initiated 2 bonus picks a week, 3 weeks ago. So those bonus picks are off to a good start at 5-1. Before I get to that, I decided it would be necessary to put my own personal college football rankings, my college football playoff rankings, if you know what I mean. Since we have to wait till November till the selection committee ranks these teams from here on out, I just did my own little rankings. There might be some controversy here, so comment your thoughts down below on this. Number 1, I have Clemson, and the reason why I have Clemson is I just feel like they have the best resume so far of anybody in college football right now. Because Clemson's beaten 3 top 15 teams when they were in the top 15 at that time. And they have an opportunity to get a 4th when they play NC State later in the season. I just feel like Clemson's got the best resume in college football because there's no Deshaun Watson, no Mike Williams, no Wayne Gallman. You lose a bunch of starters on your offense, and they still manage to be undefeated at this point. It's pretty impressive. Because everybody thought Clemson was going to take a step back this year. But they haven't. They've answered the bell. Kelly Bryant has really answered the bell so far this year. Although he did have I believe it was an ankle injury. But we'll see what happens as they play their next game against Syracuse. I think Clemson should be fine in that one. Although it is Friday the 13th this Friday, so anything could go wrong. But I think Clemson should be fine in this one. I don't want to really jinx anything. But I think Clemson should come out with a W depending who starts at quarterback. Because they still, even if Kelly Bryant can't play, they still have got 2 great quarterbacks in Hunter Johnson, Zarek Cooper. Whichever one starts, I think they can beat Syracuse pretty handily. Number 2, I have Alabama. And the reason why I have Alabama at number 2 instead of number 1 is because I feel like Alabama doesn't have as good as a resume so far as Clemson does. Like I just said, Clemson has the best resume in all of college football right now, beating 3 top 15 teams when they were in the top 15 at that time. They've beaten Auburn, who's now number 10. They've beaten Louisville. Although they may be out of the rankings right now, they could still climb back up to the top 25. There's still a lot of season left. And they've beaten Virginia Tech. So they've beaten 3 ranked opponents at that time. And Alabama only beat 1 ranked opponent, Florida State, which right now it's not looking like is an impressive victory. Although you could argue that DeAndre Francois is out and they're starting a freshman quarterback. But still, Florida State's 1-3 right now. If they keep losing games, then it's not going to look as convincing. Number 3, I have Georgia. And I feel like Georgia's played better football than my number 4 team in Penn State. And the reason why I say that is because Georgia has a signature victory already. Penn State doesn't really have that signature victory yet. Because Penn State hasn't played a real opponent. They're on a bye week this week. So maybe TCU could climb up to Penn State, depending on how convincing they could beat Kansas State. But the reason why I put Georgia at 3, the signature victory, the marquee win on the road at Notre Dame, and that is their only loss on the year. So Georgia beat Notre Dame, who demolished Michigan State, who pulled off an upset on the road against Michigan. So right now Georgia's got a good convincing victory. And if Alabama and Georgia stay undefeated, which there is a possibility of that happening, but let's not get too certain. There's still a lot of college football left by the time the SEC title game rolls around. I've seen a lot of tweets saying if Alabama and Georgia play as undefeated teams for an SEC title game, both teams make the college football playoff no matter what. And honestly, I could agree with that, but there's still a lot of teams that could really enter the picture. So now my top 4, officially, Clemson at number 1, Alabama 2, Georgia 3, Penn State 4. My first 2 out are TCU and Washington. Now, the margin of error between Penn State and TCU for that 4th spot, it's literally the size of about an inch or a centimeter. Maybe even a couple of inches, because Penn State was like maybe 2 or 3 inches away from losing against Iowa. So maybe TCU could sneak in the top 4 at some point. And Washington number 6, I almost want to put Washington State at 6 instead of Washington because Washington has benefited from an easy schedule so far. So that's kind of why I didn't want to put Washington at 5 or 4. That's why Washington is at 6. So let's get to my Week 7 predictions. 10 more games this week and 2 bonus picks. Let's start off with the bonus picks just so we can speed through the video because there's really no good game of the week this week. No ranked matchup. Let's start with the bonus picks. NC State versus Pittsburgh. Got NC State in that one. NC State is an underrated squad. And if one or two things, you might hear me repeat this several times as the season goes on, especially if NC State keeps winning games, that if you look back to the South Carolina game, maybe one or two things go differently. And we're talking NC State as a top, maybe we can talk about NC State being a top 15 team right now. Example, the opening kickoff return for a touchdown. If that doesn't happen, maybe they win in overtime. Who knows? And the next bonus game we have, South Carolina versus Tennessee. I got South Carolina in that one. And this could be the end of Butch Jones. I mean, Butch Jones knows that his coaching job's on the line. Butch Jones knows he has to win right now. I feel like one more loss for Butch Jones, and it's kind of a done deal. So I think South Carolina wins this matchup and seals the fate of Butch Jones in Tennessee. Although maybe they might let Butch Jones finish out the season. Depending on what happens, they probably don't want to jump the gun on interim coaches. They don't want to do what LSU did and fire in the middle of the season. Kind of put all your eggs in a basket where you're getting a certain coach and then you don't get that coach. Then you're stuck with having to hire the interim for a full-time coaching position. So I don't know if maybe they'll hang in with Butch Jones at the end of the year, then let him go after that final game of the year, then try to go on the coaching market. So they probably don't want to pull an LSU. But we'll see what happens when we come to that. First matchup, number 6, TCU versus Kansas State. I like TCU in this matchup, although Kansas State may be able to put some pressure on a little bit. I think TCU's offense is just too lethal at this point, and their defense is really turning into one of the best, if not the best, in the Big 12. Next, number 17, Michigan versus Indiana. Michigan is looking to respond after the upset loss against Michigan State. A low-scoring game, 14-10. If Michigan wins out, I feel like maybe Michigan can make the cultural playoff, but I honestly don't see Michigan winning out, especially if they don't have a good history against Ohio State. They haven't beaten Ohio State, it seems forever. But I think Michigan will beat Indiana. I think they're going to have a good response. Although Indiana may challenge them a little bit, kind of like what they did to Ohio State in the first game of the year. I think Michigan pulls it out in the end. Next, staying in the Big Ten now, Purdue versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin's number 7. I almost put Wisconsin at number 6, but they haven't played any tough competition yet. But Wisconsin will play some tough competition down the road. However, Wisconsin does have the golden ticket. They've got the Willy Wonka golden ticket to the Big Ten title game. Their toughest opponent left is Michigan, and they get Michigan at home this year. And I think Wisconsin wins. I think Wisconsin wins pretty handily. Number 10, Auburn versus LSU. Ever since that 14-6 loss, often only getting up 11 sacks against Clemson, their offense has gotten stronger and stronger each week. In fact, Jared Stidham has looked very much better as what he did in the beginning of the year. It's turning into the Jared Stidham that Auburn fans were hoping for. However, their challenge this week is they go to LSU in Death Valley. And LSU's coming off a big win against Florida on the road. That's a good response to after the home heartbreak against Troy. But I think Auburn gets the win here. I just think Auburn's offense is just getting stronger and stronger every single week as we move along in this season. Auburn's got some big games coming up later in the season. Georgia, Alabama, those two are really looking like strong games. But I think Auburn gets the win here. I think it's going to be I think it's going to be close to what people think. I think Auburn wins by 3 points. I think it's going to be really low scoring. Although I like Auburn's offense to really step up toward the end of the game. Next match at Georgia Tech versus Miami, Florida, who's number 11, coming off a victory the last couple of seconds against Florida State on the road in that rivalry matchup. But I think Miami, Florida wins this matchup here, although Georgia Tech might be able to provide some challenges for that Miami, Florida defense. If Georgia Tech can just continue to pound that triple option, if Miami, Florida's defense has a hard time stopping that triple option, Georgia Tech might be able to pull off the upset here. But I think Miami gets the win. I think it's going to be really close. I'm going to say Miami only wins by 7 points in this match. I think that triple option is going to be hard for them to stop toward the beginning of the game. But I think as far as the game goes along, I think their offense will step up to the occasion especially with their quarterback Malik Rozier, really most underrated quarterback in the ACC conference. But I think Miami gets a close victory. I think they're going to escape. The Red River rivalry matchup, number 12 Oklahoma versus Texas. Oklahoma looking to get a response going after the home loss to Iowa State. Now, if Oklahoma does win out, I think they could get in the college football playoff. Because they still got games coming up. They've got TCU coming up. They got Oklahoma State coming up. They've got some matchups. If Oklahoma can win out, I like their chance to make the college football playoff. But with Texas, though, it's kind of an unexpected. You don't know what to expect out of Texas. Is the Texas team that shows up is going to be the one that lost to Maryland by double digits at home, or is it going to be the team that showed up against USC, the one that almost took down USC? I think it's going to be the Texas team that lost Maryland by 10 points, although I think it's going to be really close. I think we're going to see a lot of ranked teams have close games this week. I think Oklahoma only wins this game by one possession, especially if Texas' defense can step up to the occasion. I think this might be the turning point for Oklahoma's season. Either this is going to start the run to the college football playoff, and they win out, or this is just going to be the season breaker. And I like Oklahoma to pull off the victory. I think it's going to be really close. I'm going to say 24-20. I'm going to say Oklahoma's defense gets a clutch stop toward the end of the game. Next, we have Texas A&M versus Florida. Texas A&M is coming off, in a way, a morale victory, only losing by 8 points to the number one team in the country, who might win the national championship, at least get to the title game. Against Florida, they're going on the road in the swamp. They face an athletic front seven, one of the most underrated defenses in the SEC. Especially, Florida has kind of improved as times go along. They did miss a game-tying extra point against LSU. That was the difference in the game. And I think Florida comes out. I think they come out guns a-blazing. I think Florida wins this by double digits. I think their offense is getting better as the weeks go on. I think I think this is the breakout game for Felipe Franks. I think Florida wins this by 14 points. I just got to be honest here. Number 9, Ohio State versus Nebraska. Now, Nebraska suffered a 21-point loss at home last week. They actually opened up as a 25-point underdog, which kind of is surprising a little bit. But the good news is for Nebraska, Ohio State hasn't really played tough competition except for Oklahoma, and they ended up losing that game. But the bad news is Ohio State still has a talented offense. Their offense is getting stronger and stronger each week. I feel like they're becoming a better team as the season goes along. Ohio State has scored 50-plus points in their last 3 games, including 4 games this year where they've scored more than 40 points. The good news is for Nebraska fans is those 50-point games, in fact, those 40-plus point games are from Indiana, Rutgers, Maryland, from the bottom feeders of the Big Ten. Bad news is Ohio State's defense is one of the most underrated defenses in college football. Probably the most talented front seven in the Big Ten. And I think Ohio State gets a big victory here. It could be close for a little bit, but I think we see a big repeat of last year. I think Ohio State just dominates this game from start to finish. I think Ohio State picks up a 45-14 victory. I just like that offense led by J.T. Barry. Especially with Nebraska having Tanner Lee at quarterback. 10 interceptions now this year. That is still leading all quarterbacks in interceptions with 10. Next we have Utah versus number 13 USC. And I think USC is going to win this game. I feel like they had a good response rate against Oregon State. I think this continues. Although USC has to play the gauntlet of 12 weeks in a row. They're in the middle of that. But I think they get the win here. I just think Utah is not that strong of a caliber team than what Washington State was. Dropped my pen, but oh well. But I think Sam Darnold, he's starting to pick it up a little bit. If Sam Darnold can just stop the turnovers, USC can make a playoff run. But if Sam Darnold keeps turning the ball over, it's going to cost him eventually, maybe against UCLA or it could cost them in the Pac-12 title game if they get there. It could cost them somewhere down the line this season. But I think USC gets the victory. I think they're going to be fortunate to play Utah. I think they dominate this game from start to finish. Next, Oregon versus number 23 Stanford. This is the last game that we're going to talk about because we've already done the bonus picks. But Oregon, the key for Oregon in this game is to get a fast start going. In fact, Stanford is losing two of their best defensive players in the first half for targeting penalties in the second half against Utah last week. Yes, I stayed up to watch that game. For Oregon to get a fast start, that's what's going to give them a chance to win this game. But even if Oregon does get a fast start, I feel like that running game led by Bryce Love. I mean, history shows that Stanford has the edge in this matchup. Because Stanford in the past, they just keep running the football with their running game. Take long possessions. Keep the Oregon explosive offense on the sidelines. I think that's what's going to happen in this game. Especially with Bryce Love leading the NCAA in rushing yards. Who could be the Heisman favorite. Well, he would be the Heisman favorite if Stanford hadn't lost 2 games already. But I think Stanford gets this win. And that'll do it for my Week 7 picks. Comment your picks down below. Like and subscribe to the channel. Close to 1,000 subscribers. I believe I need about 22 or 23 more. So share this with your friends and family. I will see you next time. Have a great day, everybody.